we try to remember, communication is like 93% nonverbal. Most of what you're conveying to them is not by what you're saying, it's by who you're being, and they're observing that, and especially in the early ages. So we try to pass down the explicit and the spoken. We read our scriptures, we do pray, we continue to look to the Lord for things. But what I think there, it's two sides of the coin, right? We're showing them what righteous patterns look like, but the other side of that is we're showing them what imperfect people do when they cannot fulfill those righteous patterns. And as parents, sometimes we feel a little embarrassed. We don't want to show that we're imperfect in front of our kids. We don't want our kids to be right. Sometimes that's really the truth of it. And so sometimes they'll see us doing all the right things, but they don't always see us doing the right thing when we're in the wrong, which is saying I'm sorry or apologizing or not using our authority as a parent to say, well, that's because I said so. Sometimes you do have to own up to certain things, and you do have to always point to this idea that, hey, I am not perfect, and I am trying to, be a disciple of Jesus Christ as I'm raising you to become one as well. And this is just something I've adopted. But it is not your job to carry your child to the celestial kingdom. It's your job to carry him to the Savior, and He will carry both of you into the celestial kingdom. I do that with my son, and I think it creates a whole different perspective for me, because now I am not trying to be this perfect parent. I'm not like kicking myself in the can every time I have a bad day with my son, or maybe things I didn't respond the right way. I always know that I have to help introduce him to the Savior, because it's not me who's going to save my son, it's Him. And it's helped a ton personally, because the responsibility of his salvation is not, I know there are things I'm going to do and teach him, but ultimately, if I can get him to have experiences with the Savior in our time as we're raising him, then when I'm not around, he will have somebody he can still rely on, which would be the Savior. So parents, you have to ask yourself, you're telling them all the right things to do, and you're showing some of the things to do, but are you showing them all the things to do? I recommend there should be some vulnerability, especially with teenagers. They know and they can sense when you're not being completely transparent with them. And you don't have to tell them all your dirty laundry or tell them if you're having marriage problems, but you should be showing them, like, hey, I'm going through a rough time. Work has been really hard. Parenting has been really hard. School has been really hard. This is how I find healing in this. They will follow that example way more than when they just find you reading the scriptures, which they should, but there's more to it, because one is showing them how things run when it's smoothly, but the other side of it is, what do they do when they need to troubleshoot with life a little bit, right? Because in the world, you could be reading your scriptures and doing all the right things that create a righteous pattern of living, but some things might happen, like bad things. There's things that may be really painful. And if all they've been taught was to read scriptures, pray, and go to church, but they weren't taught that just because you do those things doesn't mean certain other things happen. This is how you troubleshoot life. This is how you access the Savior. If you're not teaching them that part, that's why they feel like the church sometimes is this, they don't get it, because they're like, well, church is only telling me to do three things: go to church, pray, read my scriptures, but they're not actually helping me with the problem I have. There's this disconnect between where I'm at and what they're telling me to do, and I'm not finding that. And that can be a huge bridge for between you and your child, as you start to raise them in the gospel, and you're trying to maintain or keep a healthy relationship with them in the future as they grow up.